People ready? Should be in the same place as it's been before. For those of you online, this isn't exactly the same as the quizzes that are in the materials, but there is a substantial overlap. So people in the room who've already done the quizzes may well have a small advantage. Okay, I'm going to assume readiness to an extent. Which of the following is a good definition of the term acceptance? Any indication that the offeree is prepared to negotiate. A final and unqualified assent to the terms of an offer. What the purchaser does to confirm willingness to purchase will depend on the facts of each case. Speed is rewarded as well as accuracy. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, overwhelmingly people are in the right place. Depend on the facts of each case is often a safe answer, but when you've got something that is really clear, go with safer again. Acceptance is what the purchaser does to confirm willingness to purchase is usually actually an offer when you think about it. Invitation to treat. So whether we're talking about buying a house or buying groceries, it is a usual, not universal, but usual that the vendor will indicate a willingness to treat. So treat in this sense means negotiate or enter into an arrangement. So what the purchaser does to indicate that they are willing, that they actually want to go ahead, is they technically make an offer on the, usually though on the terms that the vendor has indicated that they're willing to treat. So if that's buying a box of cereal at the shopping centre, cereal is displayed on a shelf, it's got a price next to it. Take the cereal box to the cashier or to the robot, however you choose to buy, and you indicate your willingness to purchase effectively by making an offer to purchase at the displayed price, which is immediately accepted. Okay, so tricky. This is what lawyers do. We really focus on the words. Oh, good. Well, I didn't know that that was going to work. Yay. Oh, that smiley face person is fast, if it's the same smiley face as last time. Okay, so who can accept an offer? Only a person to whom the offer has been made, generally. Any person who's aware of the offer, the highest bidder, or anyone with capacity to contract. Oh, some fast action there. It's going up and down. People are changing their mind. 2, 1, 0. Again. So if we were talking about a unilateral offer that was made to the world, then both of these would be correct. But we were just talking about an offer. Oh, that smiley face is turned upside down. Can an act done in ignorance of a unilateral offer be acceptance of an offer? Any questions about the question? Yes or no? This software only lets me set the same amount of time for every question. So, although I think we've got about 25 participating, so if I see it get to 25, I'll flip. Absolutely. So the case here, there's a couple of them we probably won't spend a lot of time in class, particularly now I've seen that kind of result. So Clark and Crown, or the Crown and Clark. R v Clark. So R stands for Rex or Regina, means the crown or the queen, is sometimes how it's said. In that case, Mr. Clark was assisting police with their inquiries. And it was made known to him that if he were to give them some knowledge about some events that he may have known about, that he would probably get a lesser sentence, or he would get a lesser sentence in relation to the inquiries he was assisting with in the first place. So Mr. Clark dutifully gave that information. We call it dobbing on a mate. And then subsequently found out that there was a reward for information leading to the arrest and subsequent incarceration of his mate. So he went and claimed the reward. So question became, if he didn't know about the reward, could he claim the reward? And the answer to that was no. So again, go back to the lost dog. If Emily's lost dog is roaming the streets, Clay's out dutifully looking everywhere for this dog, and I just stumble across it. See, it has a little tag, and I give Emily a call, say, here's your dog. If she gives me $100, was that the reward for the dog? I can't remember, whatever, let's make it 100. If she gives me $100, do we have a problem? I certainly don't. Well, I probably do, because there's probably a conflict of interest, but that's a different contract I have with somebody else. But I don't. I quite like money, so I'm very happy with that, but I don't have any contractual right to it. Now, it is not a crime, it is not a breach of contract to do stuff that you're not contractually obliged to do. But if she doesn't do it, I can't sue her.
If she does it,
what I should have done was call Clay, split it with her, and gone from there.
if
Sorry.
she does it, even though you have no contractual right to it, can she then ask for it back, or once she's given it to you,
Yeah, she probably can, because it's an unconditional, like it's a gift. I mean, pretty lame, but actually she probably can, because there's, well, and it depends on how she gave it, but I guess we go to that question, we'll talk about that in consideration, and in fact it was an exam question a little while ago, was can somebody be bound to keep their promise to give someone a gift? And the short answer to that question is, if you document it the right way, if it's in a deed, yeah, they probably can. But without any consideration, we don't have all of the elements of a contract. Ken?
My question with that, the ignorance at what stage? So if you found the dog and then stumbled across the sign, is it the point ignorance at the time that you start making the act, or at what point?
No, it would be ignorance at the time that the contract is made. So the contract is made by the doing of the thing, the doing of the act that is sought out after by the offeree, by the offeror. So in Mr. Clark's stage, when he was asked to provide the information, he didn't know about the reward. By the time he'd finished providing the information, he had done all of the things required to enact the contract if the contract had been, if he'd known about it.
Right.
Having said that, I'm oversimplifying it a bit, because as we all know, when a reward is offered, or you might not know, when a reward is offered by the police for information leading, it's usually leading to the arrest and subsequent conviction. So in fact, you don't get your reward until the person is convicted, and it is highly likely that Mr. Clark was aware by the time it got to the conviction point. And we will see this happen a number of times, but I suspect that the court might have been a little bit more open to Mr. Clark's request if he'd been an ordinary Joe on the street who had just rung 000 because he'd seen something bad happen, and that subsequently led to the capture of this person for whom there was a reward and their conviction. Even though he didn't know about the reward, he was just an ordinary Good Samaritan, I suspect that the result would have been different. But we get what we get. But the reality is, I also suspect in that case, they probably would have just paid the reward, even though they didn't have to, right? Because they want to encourage, rewards are a policy type thing about encouraging behaviour. I don't know that, my knowledge of the criminal sphere is very, very limited. Oh, there's movement. There's some movement. When is a person who is not the offeree, when can a person who is not the offeree accept an offer? When the offeror intends that a third party might accept, when the offeree has died, their estate can accept. If the offer states that it can be accepted by a nominee, when the accepting party acts as an agent for the offeree. Four, three, two, one. Just a little gift from me to all of you. Basically, all of those were examples where a third party can accept the offer. There are many, many more. I'm winning. I'm coming second. If more than one offeree accepts, but the contract can only be performed once, the last one to accept misses out. The offeree is likely to be in breach of at least one contract. The offeror is likely to be in breach of at least one contract. The parties will need to go to mediation. Three, two, 1, 0. So again, most people are there. The first is often a true statement, but it could be either. Any party who accepts, somebody is going to need to miss out, but they will still have a claim. Offeree and offeror, that's just messing up the terms. Somebody's just tried to be quick as opposed to accurate. And yeah, at the end of the day, we're going to have a party who's in breach. So mediation is, well, the reality of our system now is if it goes to court, it's going to be court-ordered mediation before anything else happens anyway. So, but yeah, hopefully it's resolved sooner than that. Adding a term when accepting the offer is a really good way to ensure that the terms are clear and certain. Adding a term when accepting the offer creates a counter-offer which varies the contract terms, or adding a term when accepting the offer results in a counter-offer extinguishing the original offer. They really do need the music to make it a little bit more like... Actual music as opposed to mum music. Yes, I think most people are in the same place. Adding a term when accepting the offer does create a counter-offer, but that extinguishes the original offer. It doesn't actually change the contract term. If it might, by the way, just because a counter-offer has been made doesn't mean it's all over Red Rover. It's actually all right for the offeror, the original offeror, who is then the offeree of the counter-offer, to say, yeah, okay, and that would lead to the contract terms being the new terms, but that use of the word there varies the contract terms, assumes the existence of a contract that has been changed. And adding a term when accepting the offer might actually have that end result by saying, for example, online today I went to buy something and let's say instead of online, it was a face-to-face conversation, I was quoted $50, and it's at the point that I'm accepting that I think to ask, are we talking US or Australian dollars? So actually it's a clarification, because I might be offering in that invitation to treat 50 Australian dollars, but which is quite different from 50 US dollars. But the impact of that happening is I understood the invitation to treat better. It didn't actually, my counter offer of 50 Australian dollars would no doubt have been rejected.
Question on that, Kat.
Yeah.
If you offered 50 Australian dollars and the advertised currency was US and they accepted that offer, would that then, that would void that contract and then you would be offering them a new contract?
Well, there's not a contract to start off with. So if you're offering to sell me your water bottle for 50 US dollars and I say no, but I'll pay 50 Aussie dollars for it, then effectively you've made an offer, which I've rejected. I've made you a counter offer. So you started off as the offeror, I then became the offeree. At that point, as offeree, I varied at the offer in my response. You accepted that variation, and it's at that point our contract, we had a meeting of the minds and our contract was created. A court needs to find that both an offer and find both an offer and an acceptance in order to determine an agreement. Yes, without both we can't have an agreement. No, it'll look to identify consensus and intention if offer and acceptance aren't clear. No, offer and acceptance aren't relevant if an agreement is signed. Yes, these basic principles are fundamental to the common law. Three, two, one. So that's where we're going to move on to this afternoon to talk about, it was the morning when I started, it's now the afternoon. I'm just working with my OUA colleagues. We don't know what time of day it is when they're listening to this. So we will look at this idea of consensus. So the short thing to think about, and we'll talk a bit about the Brambles case in particular, but at the end of the day, in order to end up with an enforceable contract, we need to have an agreement, consideration, intention, and certainty. Agreement is usually identified by offer and acceptance. But in commercial negotiations particularly, it can be very hard to work out who's the offeror, which stage is the offer, how we've ended up. So the courts can look at more broadly, and there's a test in the Brambles case that will help us with that, to work out, using an objective test, did it appear from the conduct of the parties, both before and afterwards, that they had actually reached an agreement? Oh, Matt's taken over at the last moment. Masters and Cameron, authority for the proposition that a written contract is only final when solicitors have reviewed it. True story, fake news. Got 20, oh, we got more. I thought we only had about 25 doing it. 3, 2, 1, 0. Absolutely. I wish it were the first. That might be me who just put that one in there, because then we'd all be guaranteed of being very rich. Masters and Cameron, it was relevant in that decision the extent to which there was a preliminary agreement or a subsequent agreement, but yeah, we will get to that shortly. That doesn't actually seem like the right week. Was Masters and Cameron in your reading? No. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, that's not what it is about. Okay, the last one before you have a break. In order to determine whether parties have reached finality in their agreement, a court will Only look at whether there's a signed document. Consider the actions of the party both before and after the purported agreement is made. Look carefully at the words the parties used in any written agreement, or only take into account what happened before the alleged agreement was made. Again, if you're looking blankly and if Masters and Cameron wasn't in this week's reading, this might be an unfair question. Still, people are having a go. That's what I like to see. So, both of the middle ones are correct. Let's get to that when we get to it. So, again, most people were in the ballpark there. And if you're guessing in particular, I'm still coming second. Story of my life. Oh. Okay, this must be the last one, surely. Agreements to agree. I don't know why these are in here. These are, we'll get here. Agreement to agree. Sounds like a good negotiating tactic. Is an essential step in the process of creating an enforceable agreement. Sometimes make it hard to identify what consideration is. That should be in next week, shouldn't it? Are generally not enforceable. What do we think? So an agreement to agree is something along the lines of, yeah, let's not worry about those terms now, we'll sort them out later, we'll agree them when it's time. Telling you that at the end is probably not helpful, but yeah, spoiler alert for next week, they are generally not enforceable. I am thinking that we're going to stop at this point because we're clearly on the wrong terms. I'm just going to go like this. Oh, silence is golden. Oh, actually, this is an acceptance one. You can do this one. However, alone not adequate to be acceptance. Silence is golden and can represent acceptance if an offer stipulates that it's an appropriate method. Four, three, two, one. So again, in the acceptance pieces, silence and nothing else is never going to be capable of being acceptance. Silence and a handshake, silence and a wink, silence and an email saying I accept, they will work. So the key case, I'm winning. Key case there, Feldhouse and Bindley. Case about the auctioneer selling the horses, and the uncle said, I'll pay whatever it was for that horse. If I don't hear anything from you, I will treat that as acceptance. And he was ultimately not successful. Oh, really? How many questions do I need to ask you guys? Courts determine whether conduct is or is not acceptance using an objective test, a subjective test, polling software like this in a courtroom, or some scales. Which one, 2, 3 or 4, you only get to pick one, don't you? Do you think is appropriate? How cool would it be if we could just use this software to determine what the law is at any given time? I had a speeding fine coming back from the snow. I think there should have been a polling software as to whether or not that sign was actually visible or not. So again, objective test. They're always pretty much objective tests, and I am the winner with the confetti. Yay! Have a break, my friends. Stretch your legs. We'll start talking about acceptance in about 5 minutes' time, okay? And those of you at home, please stretch your legs, have something to eat or drink, and we will return momentarily.